Some loves are so deep, so enduring, that they transcend time and memory itself. This is the story of a woman who stood by her husband through his darkest days, holding on to a love that never faltered even when he no longer recognized her. What would you do if the one you loved most forgot your face, but you never gave up? This is a love that even death couldn't erase asterisk. Now I will begin to tell the story called The Last Light of Love asterisk. In a small town nestled in the heart of the American Midwest, the sun always seemed to set a little slower. It was a place where time felt like it moved in rhythm with the seasons, where life's biggest milestones were often measured in the quiet moments. This was where Lily and David had spent their lives together. They had met in high school. Lily, a shy, gentle soul with a love for books, and David, a boy with a laughter so contagious that it could light up any room. Their love story wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was something steady and constant, like the river that flowed through their town. They bought a house near the edge of town, a modest two-story home with ivy creeping up the sides and a white picket fence that, for years, they had filled the house with love, laughter, shared dreams. David was a teacher and Lily worked at the local library. They spent their days doing what they loved, but it was the nights that made their hearts full sitting on the porch, watching the stars and speaking of the future. They had never had children, not because they didn't want them, but because life had taken them in a different direction. There were vacations, spontaneous trips, quiet dinners, and the comfort of simply being with one another. As they grew older, the world around them seemed to change. But their love remained a constant. Then, one day, the world shifted in a way that neither of them could have anticipated. It was a warm autumn day. When David went for his usual run, he had been feeling a bit winded lately, but nothing alarming. But that afternoon, he collapsed on the pavement just a few blocks from home. When Lily received the call from the hospital, she knew something was wrong. David had always been healthy and strong. Even the doctors told her that David had suffered a massive stroke, one that left him with severe cognitive impairment. At first, Lily held on to hope. She believed that David, the man who had always been full of life, would recover. She didn't believe in giving up. But as the days stretched into weeks and then months, the reality set in. David was not the same person. His mind, once sharp, was now a blur of fragments. Memories slipping away like sand through her fingers. Lily refused to leave his side. She would sit by his bed for hours, holding his hand, talking to him about their life together, about the garden they had planted together, about their dreams. Sometimes she would play the songs he loved, the ones they had danced to when they were young, and though he never responded, she believed in the power of those memories, hoping that somewhere inside David was still there. Time wore on. The doctors said that there was little chance of recovery, that the damage to his brain was irreversible. But Lily ignored their words. She cared for David with the same tenderness she always had, helping him with his meals, bathing him, dressing him. Every morning she would make him his favorite coffee, the one with just a hint of vanilla, and sit beside him, hoping that one day he might look at her and remember. But as the months passed, the distance between them seemed to grow. David's eyes no longer sparkled with recognition when he saw her, and his voice, once so warm and full of love. It was as if the man she had spent her life with was slipping away before her very eyes, and no matter how much she fought, she couldn't stop it. Still, she didn't give up. One rainy evening, as the wind howled outside, Lily sat beside David's bed, reading him a book they had once shared. It was a quiet, intimate moment, the kind they had shared countless times before. She glanced at him, as she often did, searching for any sign that he was still there. His face, once full of expression, was now unreadable, his eyes lost in some distant place. "David," she whispered softly, "do you remember when we used to sit on the porch and watch the stars? You always said that the stars were our secret." There was no response, no flicker of recognition, but Lily didn't mind. She simply held his hand and continued to read aloud as if he could hear her. as if he could understand. Days passed and Lily's exhaustion began to show. Her face was tired, her steps slow, but her love for David never wavered. She would take breaks, only to return to his side, wiping away the tears that had begun to form in her eyes. She couldn't stop the pain, but she could keep her heart open just as she always had. One morning, as she sat by his side, David's breathing became shallow. She had always known. The doctors had warned her that this moment was coming. But even with the knowledge, nothing could have prepared her for it. She kissed his forehead, her tears falling onto his pillow. "I love you, David," she whispered, as if she were saying, "Goodbye. I've always loved you, and I will always love you." It was then, in the stillness of the room, that David's hand shifted slightly in hers. His fingers tightened around her palm, and for the first time in what felt like forever, his eyes met hers. They were cloudy, distant, but for a moment. There's something that made her heart leap. A faint smile curled at the corner of David's lips. It was a smile that didn't belong to a man who had been so ill for so long. It was a smile full of memories of love, of all. The years they had spent together. David's breath became slower, and the smile never left his face. His eyes closed gently, as if he were finally at peace, and in his last moments he seemed to be saying goodbye, not with words, but with the expression of a love that had never faded. And then, just like that, David was gone. Lily sat there, holding his hand, her heart breaking, but also filled with a sense of peace. She had loved him for so many years, and even in his last moments, he had given her something to hold on to, a final, beautiful gift. The world outside continued to turn, but for Lily, time stood still. She had lost her partner, her best friend, the man she had loved all her life. But in her heart, she knew that their love would never fade, not even in death. The last light of love had dimmed, but it would shine forever in her heart. Reflective lesson. The story of Lily and David is a poignant reminder of the depth of love and the resilience of the human spirit. It teaches us that love is not just about the good times. 'Tis about standing by each other, even in the most difficult moments. Lily's devotion to David, despite his illness, exemplifies the kind of love that transcends time, memories, and physical presence. It is a love that endures, a love that does not fade with the passing of time or the loss of recognition in the face of tragedy. Lily's story is one of unwavering devotion. She didn't need David to recognize her, to remember the moments they had shared, because her love for him was unconditional. It wasn't based on his ability to reciprocate in the way that she might have hoped, but it was rooted in the knowledge that love is not always about mutual acknowledgement. You're doing it alone. David's final smile, his quiet gesture of goodbye, speaks volumes. It tells us that love isn't always spoken in words. Sometimes it's the silence that holds the most meaning. David's recognition, even if fleeting, showed that love isn't confined to the mind, it transcends memory and time. It lives in the heart, in the moments shared, and in the care given. The lesson from Lily's story is one of patience and resilience. Even when the end seems near, love doesn't disappear. It lingers, it stays, and it carries us through. Just as Lily's love for David carried her through the darkest days of his illness, in the end, the greatest gift we can give to those we love is our presence, our unwavering commitment to be there, no matter what. And in return, love leaves us with memories, with feelings, and sometimes with a final, fleeting smile that says more than words ever could. The last light of love never fades, it simply becomes a part of us forever.